and welcome to part 9. I've discovered through writing this script that it's a lot of ranting about my thoughts, so please sit comfortably and enjoy. Please feel free to type your thoughts in the comments section. If you disagree with my opinions or have a different view, please state it kindly. Before we start, I'd like to say that I'm a boy group stan, but some of these subjects or opinions can apply to girl groups too. I'm just using boy groups as an example because it's my personal preference. One last thing, I used piano covers of the original songs as background music due to copyright. I'll be adding the link to all of them below. Enjoy the video! Fighting! Okay, I know that if you've been listening to my videos, I am still obsessed with X-Men even after all of this time. I know that you're probably tired of hearing me rant about a non-existent group, but please bear with me. Although I may be dramatic, I think I've somewhat gotten over them. It is good for me, but at the same time, this makes me think. With many other groups debuting a year, many can easily in a way replace empty spots in your heart. I'm using X1 as an example. Don't get me wrong, it still hasn't gone unforgotten. However, I've discovered other groups that have quote-unquote replaced them. The group that primarily had filled this spot is Treasure. I initially watched Treasure Box to get over the whole produced catastrophe, which didn't work right away until I began watching Treasure Map, Treasure's reality show. I love those boys. I could make a whole other video for just them, so I'm not going to go into detail. In conclusion, even if other people find it strange that I was this connected to a group that has disbanded almost a year ago at this point, they still made me feel happy and all other kinds of bright emotions. Yet I'm fine and found a whole new love for Treasure. I know that in reality, newer groups will always replace older groups, which makes me feel kind of sad. For example, BTS. They're big now, but they'll eventually grow old and be overtaken by younger artists. It's inevitable. Let's just enjoy this while we can before everything changes. Fighting! While I'm on the subject, I'd like to bring something else up concerning X1. That thing is their career after X1. If you weren't aware, Seungwoo returned to Victon and also did some solo work. I'm pretty sure Seungyeon's group Unique is inactive right now due to circumstances, but he did release an album under his name, Woods. Woosok, I'm assuming, returned to Uptension, however hasn't participated in their activities. He too released some solo material since then. Yohan debuted in a group called Way. Hangul and Dohyun released some music as a duo and are now debuting in a group, Bae173. Juno is debuting in a group named Drippin' with many other former produced X101 trainees. Dongpyo is currently in a pre-debut group under his company DSP Media, named DSPN. Insung has made his solo debut and has also collaborated with Woosok. Last but not least, Minhee and Hyungjin have debuted in Gravity. I live for every interaction between them, whether that be them supporting each other on social media or collaborating together. I know that was a lot, but I just wanted to express how they're all doing well. Finally getting to the point, I'd like to say that it's hard keeping up with all of them. With so many different groups, it can sometimes become stressful to keep track. I know that you're all probably thinking, she's stressing over K-pop. The answer is sort of. This doesn't just apply to X1, but to every group I'd like to stan. It can get overwhelming to the point where it feels like homework. It's utterly stupid that I feel this way, but I feel obligated to learn about everything and everyone. There's so many great groups out there, yet it's hard to successfully stan all of them efficiently. For example, like I said earlier, I'd like to get to know all of X1's individual groups. I sometimes don't know if I define myself as standing a group if I honestly don't know a lot about them. Like Tomorrow by Together and Enhypen. I watched Island in One Dream, however I feel like I haven't caught up. I love them, but at the same time I personally don't feel as connected to them. And yet I want to pick up all of the groups from Road to Kingdom. I find it hard to even keep track of comebacks, let alone appearances on music shows and reality shows. To finish this lengthy section up, I'd like to say how I've been thinking about this. I love being a multi and pride myself in it. You as a fan are never bored with content being thrown at you left and right, but it can be overwhelming sometimes. I feel some sense of guilt even if they as people have no clue who I am. I sometimes feel like I lack as a fan. But at the end of the day, K-pop is meant to take off all of the negative. You should indulge in it and enjoy this time with your favorite artists, like I stated in the last subject. I'm not sure if other people feel this, so I guess I could just be talking to myself. Either way, if I'm feeling it, other people could possibly be too. Fighting! I've made it pretty clear in other videos, but in case you didn't know, my ultimate group is BTS, like many other people. I am a multi too and have discovered many other lovable groups, but I don't think I'll ever change that position. BTS holds a special place in my heart. They introduced me to this whole new world that I now know as K-pop. I feel so nostalgic thinking back to the autumn of 2017, listening to the freshly released DNA. That doesn't mean that I don't keep up with them as much as I used to. I'm guilty of being a procrastinator and a multi, which isn't a good combination. I do tend to spend my time watching other groups more than I do BTS. That's probably because I went through a period of time when I was a baby ARMY. I watched and listened to so much BTS content that I got slightly bored of it. Don't get me wrong, I love everything, but I got introduced to a plethora of other things that it's nice to have a change. Currently, I haven't been watching a lot of BTS, which makes me feel sad, thinking about how I used to be so devoted to them. I don't think it's a bad thing that I branched out, it just makes me feel a tad bit less connected.
But fighting!
Nowadays, I play my Spotify playlist with over 1,000 songs on it, so I don't stumble across the opportunity to listen to BTS as much as I have in the past. I actually refrain from it sometimes in a way. Although you'd think I'd want to listen to my favorite group songs on repeat, I don't. That's because I'm afraid I'll get bored of these amazing songs. For me, a lot of BTS's title tracks have been overplayed and no longer hold the same feeling anymore. This brings me to the main subject in this section. Overplayed songs. This goes for many other very popular songs such as Blackpink songs to EXO's. It's good music, I've just listened to it too much. A prime example would be Boy With Love. Music that has gotten somewhat old is pretty much everything at the beginning of my playlist. Some songs that have been overplayed for me are Never Ever by GOT7, Don't Wanna Cry by 17, Really Really by Winner, Boom by NCT Dream, and Boss by NCT U. Don't get me wrong, I still love these songs. They're great, especially Boom and Boss. They've just been played so many times that I almost get tired of them. As you play songs over and over again, they to me lose the essence they initially had. But that's just me. I've played God's Menu and Top by Stray Kids so many times, yet I love them. In conclusion, the result of overplaying songs loses its effect on me over time. This is why I have a playlist of over 1,000 songs, one song not repeating itself sometimes for months.
But fighting!
Rewinding to the good old days, 2017, I'd like to share with you my favorite groups, BTS, EXO, GOT7, and 17. I made awfully edited wallpapers of them too. Let's just relish on that for a few seconds. Oh, have times changed, both with my groups and my creativity. When I look back, I honestly didn't know much about these groups, except for BTS of course. I think it was their popularity at the time that pulled me into them. In comparison to now, I like BTS, NCT, Stray Kids, Treasure, ATEEZ, and Tomorrow by Together. Can you tell that I'm primarily a newer generation? I think it helped that I was into K-pop as most of these groups were getting their start. As far as biases go, I liked Sehun from EXO, Vernon from 17, Jackson from GOT7, and Hobie from BTS, who I still bias today. From my memory, I didn't really watch many videos of them, so I didn't really fall in love with them because of their personality. It was probably because of my personal taste based on their looks. I also remember liking Lucas from NCT, but I don't recall which ones I liked from the other subunits. I even had a top 3 in BTS, which was Hobie, Jin, and Tae. Now I like all of them equally, besides my bias has a special place in my heart. Anyway, nowadays I like Jungwoo from NCT, Asahi from Treasure, Jungho from ATEEZ, Ion from Stray Kids, and Hobie of course. I've been very indecisive when it comes to my bias in Stray Kids. However, I guess I settled for Jongin sometime. Can you tell that I'm a soft stan? As for the other groups I like, I still haven't decided. I'm kind of leaning towards Huening Kai for TXT, but I'm not quite sure. I know this whole section has been kind of weird, but I just wanted to share my preferences over the years with you guys. You might find this section boring, but I hope you were somewhat interested in me over the years. Maybe we have a few similarities.
But fighting!
I'm sure you've heard fans scream over artists and how they want to marry them along with the other interesting things. But as for me, I think of them as brothers or friends. That's mostly due to the age, but also how they make me feel as a fan. Being a part of their fandom feels like one huge family. Although it'd be nice to have someone like them as a boyfriend, I wouldn't dream of having specifically them as a boyfriend. It's also unrealistic that I'd stumble over someone like them in real life, and I'm setting my standards way too high, but let's not talk about that. Going back to the brother aspect, I feel that way with Johnny and Mark. They're not my bias, but they feel like brothers to me. I wish I had a brother or two like that, but alas, I'm the only child. Even if I find every K-pop artist I come along attractive and say that I'd like to marry them, I don't honestly mean it. I'm just glad that I have role models and brotherly figures to look up to.
But fighting!
This topic kind of connects to the previous, the Taebean fans' relationships with idols. First of the 3 subcategories I'd like to touch on is degrading other people in general. I'll further explain by saying that I'm guilty of doing it. I'd say, why do no guys look or act like that where I live? I don't have bad intentions and I'm not being serious, but the more I think about it, the more I feel stupid about myself. We see this perfect image and say that our idols are perfect. We idolize them. But as the famous saying goes, no one's perfect. Our idols are no exception. This can make us feel like a lesser person, as well put pressure on those idols to show us nothing short of perfection. If we'd say, oh my gosh, they're so much better than me at this and that. People have their own qualities, both good and bad. Another form of degrading is music taste. Once again, I'm 100% guilty of doing this. I might not outwardly say this, but I probably show it through my body language and thought. I sometimes think, my music taste is so much better than so-and-so's. Everyone has their own taste and criteria. Or if other people do it, we shouldn't be judging people. It's the exact thing we hate when people do it to us. So instead, I've learned to accept everyone in general. I've learned to keep an open mind to everyone and everything.
마쇼 화이팅! 화이팅!
Here's a short little section. I was so excited for Mamas this year. I guess I still am, but not entirely for the same reasons. The main thing that I was anticipating was this particular artist, Stray Kids. Do you see them anywhere? I was so disappointed with Mama. Personally, my favorite song of 2020 is God's Menu. So many people were baffled. I'm not sure, but I read some comments saying it was because I didn't do as well in the charts. Can someone correct and/or inform me about this? God's Menu will always be my favorite song of the year no matter what.
마쇼 화이팅! 화이팅!
As silly as it sounds, I've thought in my mind how my life would be as an idol. As fun as it seems, I don't think I'd be able to live that lifestyle. I wouldn't be strong enough. It's kind of funny how I think as if I could be an idol, but that's beside the point. Whenever these thoughts would fill my head, I think of how busy and stressful I'd be. Everything from training for years, training for long hours, basically sacrificing everything, and so much more that I have no clue about. I know it's not an excuse, but something that can make it a tad bit better would be the fact that it's their job. I initially was going to say, it's not as bad as you think about it if it's their job. But now as I'm typing this, I have come to realize other things. Since idols typically debut at young ages, they'd have to go to school and study. Some idols may study additionally after high school. Most of them have to study an additional language too. With all of this in mind, my original point has been driven into the ground.
마쇼 화이팅! 화이팅!
Something lighthearted to end this video with will be how I pronounced idols' names before I knew the correct way. First of all, probably the cringiest one for me is Chunla. I pronounced it like Chenli. Chinese names romanized to English throw me off. Another commonly mispronounced name would be Chui. I still had to look up how to pronounce it to make sure. You can guess how I pronounced it, Suyu, or something like that. I was watching a Thai drama and was reminded of 10. I thought I could pronounce his whole name right, Chitapon Li Chai Porn Kul, except for the Kul is pronounced like Kun. I'm not sure if I was the only one who was saying his name like this. When I first looked into 17, I saw a line distribution video. I thought Dino was a weird name. I later learned it was Dino. The last one I can think about is Huning Kai. I didn't even try before I heard someone say it. As a whole, I've improved so much on my Korean pronunciation. If you're confused why I say Korean, it's because I learned how to pronounce idols' names through the Hangul. English can be misleading sometimes. An actual Korean example would be if they had a woo in their name. I now say oo, like how it's meant to sound. The same goes for vowels, E in particular.
마쇼 화이팅! 화이팅!
Congratulations, you've made it to the outro. Thank you so much if you've made it this far. I'm sorry if you were on a roller coaster watching this. I went from feeling one way to another, trying to convey both sides. That's why the title of this video includes the adjective contradict and slightly offensive. I try to get my point across clearly and nicely as I can in these videos, but if there's a misunderstanding, please comment kindly in the comment section. Thank you for watching, I truly appreciate it.
마쇼 화이팅! 화이팅!
마쇼 화이팅! 화이팅!
마쇼 화이팅!
화이팅!